Folks, it is that time again because Nintendo has revealed the pricing for their new slate of games announced in the Nintendo Direct, and Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is $60. Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I wanted to talk about, once again, Nintendo's pricing for their new games, their remakes, their remasters, because following the revelation that Country Returns HD would be $60, a lot of people are very upset. And to that I say, have you all learned nothing yet? just seeing all of these people surprised at this point in the year of our Lord 2024 is frankly surprising to me, because I feel like at this point Nintendo has taught us, hey, this is how we're gonna price our stuff. If it's a mainline Nintendo IP, it's gonna be full price. You better believe it. But I keep seeing these posts being like, oh, I can't believe they would do this, and I'm like, really? You can't? This feels pretty standard for me. When they announced this, I didn't think, oh, this is going to be $40, this is going to be $50. I was like, oh, Crunchy Returns HD, that's a $60 game. Because Nintendo has pretty clearly telegraphed, like, how they're pricing their games at this point. But I'm still seeing so many people online upset about it that I wanted to talk about it today, because I specifically keep seeing comparisons to Metroid Prime Remastered. I'll put up just like the trending Donkey Kong Country Returns tag and all the tweets in it. Almost all of these tweets are specifically in relation to Country Returns HD being 60 when Prime Remastered looks better and it was a higher quality remaster and it was priced at 40. And I keep seeing people being like, well, why would they do that? Why would they price Prime Remastered at 40 when this much lower effort Donkey Kong ports or this much lower effort Luigi's Mansion 2 HD remaster, why are these full price at 60? Metroid Prime Remastered was priced at $40 for two specific reasons. The first of which being it's a Metroid game, we'll talk about that in just a second, but also the fact that it was a shadow drop. I think if Metroid Prime Remastered had been marketed in multiple directs, like let's say if it was announced in the September 2022 direct and came out in February 2023, they probably would have priced it at 60, but because it had no marketing, and notably because it is a Metroid game, these games don't really sell that well, Metroid Dread being the best-selling game in the series, that's certainly a new high bar for the franchise. I think Prime 4 Beyond will do even better than that, but traditionally, Metroid games don't sell that well. Because it was a shadow drop, and because it's a Metroid game, I think that's why they did it at 40. I think Nintendo just kind of wanted to do a little experiment and see what would happen. Like, hey, what happens if we shadow drop a very high quality game, a much beloved game from our hardcore fan base? How will this do if we price it at $40 and shadow drop it with no marketing, give it a physical release a few weeks later? I really think that was just an experiment to see and kind of test how doing something like that would go. Now, whether or not that paid off, I'm not too sure. I think we know Prime sold about like 1.5 million, I want to say, on Switch, which I feel like is pretty good, honestly, all things considered. Once again, no marketing, although it is cheaper. I feel like 1.5 million is probably fine for that game. But the difference with Prime Remastered and Country Returns HD and Luigi's Mansion 2 is that they know those latter two will fly off the shelves. They know those games are going to sell millions of copies without much effort, right? They could price Country Returns HD at 40 and Luigi's Mansion 2 and Mario RPG and Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Like, they could price them at 40 and they'd probably see an uptick in sales, but these games are going to sell so well anyway. Why diminish the brand's perceived value by pricing them lower when they can make them full price and the average consumer is going to look at it and just be like, oh, well, this is the new Donkey Kong game. I know that's like slimy corporate business think, but I think that is the reality of the situation. Donkey Kong and Luigi's Mansion are both multi-million sellers. Luigi's Mansion especially more so. I mean, Luigi's Mansion 3, I think, sold like, what, 15 million copies? If you are Nintendo, if you are a Nintendo executive, and you look at how well that game did, why would you discount Luigi's Mansion 2 HD? Even if it was priced at 40 on 3DS, if you account for inflation, it would be like, what, 53 bucks, I think. I mentioned it in another video a few months back. So at most, maybe it could have been $50. But why? Why not just price it for $10 more? I know from a consumer standpoint, it's like, well, that's kind of frustrating. But at the same time, you do have to look at it from that business angle. And when you look at it from that standpoint, I feel like it becomes pretty obvious why they price these games the way that they do. Now, the more top level, I guess, moral question is, should they be $60? Especially when their new games are $60? Probably not. But when they've been shown time and time again that it doesn't matter if they price them higher or lower, like, why would they price them lower? I do feel like there might be a little bit of market training here from Nintendo as well, where we saw Tears of the Kingdom released at 70, I feel like it's safe to say that Switch 2 games, probably standard, will be $70, at least they're new games, so maybe $60 becomes the new kind of lower tier price point. We can continue seeing these remakes and remasters at 60, where Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and the next 3D Mario, the next Mario Kart, the next Splatoon, Animal Crossing, those are, I would say, almost guaranteed to be $70. Maybe $60 still maintains that kind of remake, smaller budget spot. Now, eventually that will raise a new issue because inevitably corporate greed will sink in and they'll start pricing, you know, I'm trying to think of an example, like, I don't know, Kid Icarus Uprising HD. I mean, that's a very requested one, but like maybe that would be $70 and then people would be like, oh, well, why is this old game $70? But then eventually it would get to the point where like 3D Land by itself is going to be priced at $70, just an example. And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, what are we really doing here, Nintendo? But for the time being, I'm personally fine with this. You can call me a Nintendo fanboy all you want. I always get flack for saying this, but video games are a luxury. If you want to play this game for cheap, Country Returns HD, or really any of these that we're talking about, right? If you want to play them for cheap, you can do that on other platforms. You can pick up a copy used on Wii or 3DS for like $20, less than that in some cases, I think. Just do that if you want to get it for cheap. But for me personally, I would rather have the option to have a proper remaster available at $60 on my Switch, my preferred place to play, than have nothing at all. Something I saw a lot, surprisingly, with Thousand Year Door when that was announced was, oh, $60 is too much for this much requested game. I wish Nintendo would just put the ROM on the eShop like they did with Pikmin 1 and 2 for like 25, 30 bucks. That is so boring to me. I would always take a proper remaster over that any day of the week because I can play the original version. Now we're going to have a version of Donkey Kong Country Returns that has all of the 3DS content in HD. Does it look pretty basic? Absolutely. And I'm not going to necessarily defend the fact that it's $60, and I don't think, you know, if you're looking at it and you don't think it's worth that, don't buy it, absolutely. But like, for me, as someone who loves this game and wants to play it again for the first time in 10 years, have all this new content that, I'll be honest, I don't even think I actually ever played the bonus world in the 3DS version, having all that on the Switch for $60, like, I'm fine with that. I'm excited to play this game. Would I prefer if it was $50, $40? Yeah, absolutely, but I'm not going to sit here on Twitter just going crazy, losing my marbles over the fact that this game is $10, maybe max $20 more than it should be. If I didn't want to buy it, I would just, you know, be quiet and not buy it, and then if I really wanted it that bad, I would just wait for it to go on a sale. Which happens often. People always say that Nintendo games don't go on sale, and while it's true they don't go on permanent discount, like there's no Nintendo Selects line where you can get Mario Odyssey and Splatoon 2 or something for, you know, $20 like we had on Wii and 3DS and Wii U, their games do go on sale very often, especially these core Mario titles. Tropical Freeze actually goes on sale for $40 very often. Like, I bet it's $40 on Best Buy right now. Like, that game's almost always on sale, and a lot of these other core Mario titles are. Luigi's Mansion 3, so I imagine Country Returns HD and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD will likely end up in a similar position where by holiday 2025, they'll probably be $40 on store shelves, especially if they're making a push with the Switch 2 and they want to sell some of this old stock of older Switch games. $40 for those games, I would say at that point, that's like completely fair. And at that point, just wait. As someone who values games as an art form, and I respect the developers a lot, I feel like other publishers have really devalued games, and people don't respect them for what they are and for what they should be worth. You know, God of War Ragnarok is a game that is worth $70. Like, I don't think you can look at that game and really argue like, oh, this shouldn't have been full price. But Sony discounts it so fast that it becomes so devalued so quickly. I'm not trying to target Sony specifically, but like, this happens with every publisher, really. Game Pass on Xbox is a huge factor in this, I think, where people are like, well, why would I pay full price or even half price for this game when it's going to end up on a subscription service in a few months? Whereas for me personally, like, my time is more valuable. So with Nintendo, the reason I like Nintendo a lot is because, like, I know for a fact they're going to release a high-quality game that I will enjoy playing. In the case of Country Returns HD, it's a game I already know I like, so, and it's been a long time since I played it, so I'm excited to replay it. But also, I know it's not going to plummet in value immediately like these games from other publishers, which makes it harder for me to buy into a $70 game like God of War Ragnarok on release day. I recently picked up The Last of Us Part 2 for the first time and played through that, and I got it for $30 on PS5, which even by Sony standards feels kind of high, honestly, for how fast their games normally go on sale. But with Nintendo, there is a sense of like your money not going away. It's not going poof in a few weeks because you know, the new Assassin's Creed bombed and you bought it on release day and it's like, oh well, I could have just waited 2 weeks and get it for 40. Like, no, Nintendo games do go on sale, but it takes a little bit more time, which for me adds a little bit more value there. But at this point, I'm rambling. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. How do you feel about this latest controversy being Donkey Kong Country Returns HD? How do you feel about it being $60? Do you think that's justified? Do you think that's too much? For me personally, I'm kind of just numb to the whole discussion at this point, and this will probably be the last time I talk about it until Nintendo does raise their prices to $70. But I will be playing it on day one. I'm excited to play it again. It's been a very long time. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.